3,000 years ago, they asked fundamental questions. What kind of society do you want to live in? We, the modern generations, have taken this framework as a given, but actually it is not a given. Somebody sat down and asked a question which said, what kind of society do we want to live in? And then we answered that question and then proceeded to create the framework. My opinion is that that framework is run out of steam. It's out of date. It's reached stage. We need to go back to that. And when we answer those questions, it will be much easier logically to then apply and say, we've answered because we make a choice. It's not a given. We've made a choice. Therefore, we're going to put our investment, our energy, our time, our money in creating what we want. It's what we choose to do. It's not a given. Now, there is a study, and I gather that the conversation around the panel is going to be about a study that you're doing, and it goes back to my issue about a tipping point. I hope that that study and some of the answers to the questions we've been asking help you slowly move towards being able to find the formula which will allow us to push this particular agenda to a tipping point. That's what I hope will happen during the course of the day. On that note, I have to make my apologies up front. I'll sit in a little bit, but I'll have to move on and go and do something else. I wish you the best in today's proceedings. Thank you.
Came today because Mrs. Graça Machel was going to be co-chairing this meeting. Unfortunately, she is unable to travel, although she had really been looking forward to the meeting. She sends her deepest regrets. This meeting is an important one. It's an important one in our partnership with the African Development Bank, but also it's important in furthering our cause and what our agenda is, which I will elaborate on further on. As you are aware, one of South Africa's heroines has passed on, Albertina Sisulu, and she in a way represents why we are here today in this meeting. She was a woman that stood strong, proud, and bold, and with determination throughout South Africa's liberation struggle. She's an inspiration to all of us, men and women, in our determination to lead this African continent to prosperity and equal opportunity for all. It is for this reason that Mrs. Machel is unable to travel. This is a sad time in the history of South Africa, and she is by her husband's side. But Mrs. Machel is always with us, and we had a long conversation with her last night, and we are very grateful and thankful for her wisdom as she continues to inspire us. As an introduction to this session, I just wanted to say a few words about who we are and why we are here today. We are about making women an integral part of the solution to unlocking Africa's economic potential. As the world was going through turmoil in 2009, a consequence of the financial sector crisis that started in the US and that sent shockwaves throughout the global economy, a group of women from the financial and business sector in South Africa got together at the request of Mrs. Machel. And in our discussions, we said, no more decisions about our future without us. Although we can't prove it, many academics believe that if there were more women at the helm of financial institutions, then this crisis, the financial sector crisis, may have been lessened. I think we all agree that women bring a new dynamic to decision-making. So these women, these women from the financial sector and business sector, inspired by Mrs. Machel and under her tutelage, decided that the time was now to look at Africa's financial sector and ensure that, one, women are more visible and active in making decisions in the financial system, and secondly, that women as an untapped economic source had better access to financial services. Although Africa's financial system was insulated to a certain extent by the crisis, our economies were hit because of our trade and investment relations with more developed economies. So these women felt that the crisis was an opportunity to engage the stakeholders, to seize this opportunity to invest differently in women. One of these stakeholders was the African Development Bank. From the onset of our engagement with the African Development Bank, with the top leadership of the bank, it was very clear that we were aligned in our thinking about women as strategic economic resources whose power needed to be unleashed. The African Development Bank, like us, understood that one avenue to unleash the power was to ensure that there were more women participating in shaping the policies and future of Africa, and also that women have access to the resources, financial and other, to enable them to fully engage in economic activities to contribute to Africa's economic prosperity. Just over a year ago, New Faces and New Voices, in partnership with the African Development Bank, held a landmark summit on investing in women. This summit took place in Nairobi, and we challenged financial sector stakeholders to set bold goals to change the landscape of access to finance by women and to fast-track women's leadership in the financial sector. Participants at the summit made pledges on these goals that they would achieve towards achieving those two objectives. And so it was a huge success. We didn't have to convert anybody. Everybody had bought into what we were saying. So the Afdb is our partner in supporting our efforts to raise the bar for financial sector stakeholders to invest in women. But there are other partners. And in some of the financial institutions that we have begun to engage with include EcoBank, with its huge footprint across the continent, Old Mutual, Absa Bank, to name a few. We've also begun to engage with the regulators as thought leaders to creating an enabling environment for the financial sector to serve women better. The governor of the Central Bank of Zambia, Dr. Caleb Ludanga, who is here today, and I thank him for participating in this gathering, and I think there's been some real strides in Zambia towards developing products, financial products that meet the needs of women. There's also the governor of the Bank of Botswana, Lina Moholo, who was the co-chair of the World Economic Forum in Cape Town earlier this year. And she sent a very strong message to the world that economic policies and business strategies for Africa must include women. There's also Professor Ndungu, governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, whose policies have led to innovations in the Kenyan financial system, resulting in the majority of the unbanked market having better access to financial services. We're also engaging with organizations such as the ILO, UNCDF, on a number of initiatives to generate better knowledge on how to build more inclusive financial systems that reach women. So our vision, New Faces, New Voices, is that African women are enhancing sustainable development. And we do this by advocating for innovative investment in African women, ensuring they take center stage, adding their value, and influencing the financial sector and the wider economy in the continent. We have three clear goals. Massively expand the amount of finance, the scale, and the depth of outreach of financial services and capital to women, as retail users of financial services, as owners of businesses, and as investors. Our second goal is to accelerate the advancement of women to management, executive, and leadership positions within the financial sector. And thirdly, to build capacity and develop the skills of African women to make informed choices and achieve success in their economic activities.